Welcome to Energy Stew. This is Peter Roth, your host. And I'd like to ask you, how's this year going to go? Wouldn't we all like to know? Well, we can actually foretell some of it through these divining tools that we have. And last week's show, we did some of that, and it was quite dynamic. And this week, we're actually doing a show about the forecast of human design for 2020. And to help me do that is a woman who's actually forecasted each year with me for the show for many years. And we're doing it again. And so I'm very happy to have the guest again, Nattalee Lillico.
Thank you, Peter. I'm looking forward to talking about 2020. I know everyone's curious, what can we tell them based on the system that we use?
And it has so many traits that it talks about. But let's just initially, for a few minutes, just let people know what human design is, so they understand why we have this information. Can you do that?
Oh, well, we have this a system that is based on a birth date, or with this particular new year, we have a date and a time that we use that activates the system with the different planets and where they land. One of the main components of the human design system besides the planets is the I Ching, 1 through 64 hexagrams. And also we have a chakra system that we use, and there's a flavor of Kabbalah. So it's four ancient systems synthesized, and we activate these. Now we have software programs, but by putting a birth date or a date that activates a chart, and it tells us what is activated, what's highlighted, what is emphasized, and that's what we're going to look at today. What's emphasized in 2020? What kind of traits and characteristics and possibilities?
Right. And there are a number of different softwares for human design out there, and they all have variations of the same themes, but each one has interesting differences and is very helpful to us. So let's look at this coming year, and what strikes you right off as a trait for the year then?
Well, I think what strikes me is that it's going to be a bit of a mixed bag, as we always have. Some things that kind of, make me look back a little bit of, some continued themes like greed and power and wanting more. And then on the softer side, we have some other things coming in about, hopefully, the more seeing in the world, people coming together, communities, collaborations. So both end of the spectrum seems to be visible here in this chart.
And that makes sense, because we are in very trying times, and a lot of people want to collaborate with those who think like they do. Even if it's greed and selfishness, they want collaboration with it.
Well, power in numbers, yes, on either end. Good point.
Right. And so I'll tell you what strikes me right away is at where the moon sign is in the chart, and it's the trait of perversion. So we're coming into a perverted year. Now, what does perversion mean? For a lot of people, the first place their mind goes is sexuality. But this doesn't really mean sexuality. This is about thinking differently, being absurd, crazed about absurd things. Because perversion means you're trying out offhanded things. And so what is perversion? It could be, we could think of it in a number of ways. One is that it's distorted thinking, and that could lead to war. Perversion is Well, we don't see any way out of this except to be crazy and, and obsessed, because perversion is an obsession with being different. But it can be on both sides. So, or on every side. I mean, there's not just two sides to this. There's so many sides where people will want to think differently than ever before.
And also can be like more differences are going to be seen just from either side, whether it's for example, something that I'm seeing more and more is children that don't identify as female, or they don't identify as male. And I'm not talking about sexuality. I'm just saying this kind of thing with children is becoming more visible.
So it could be a more perverse world in those ways as well.
Yeah.
So there are so many ways we could be socially perverse, politically perverse, economically perverse, militarily perverse.
Yeah.
So it's scary. But then again, we have these other traits of seeking collaboration. And I think that's really important, is that, and let's go through some of these traits that we're going to be happy about. And for instance, on another side of the moon is a trait that we need the support of others. So somehow, and there is a trait in this year of explanation, of knowing that we need to explain things to people to bring them onto our side, if we can. So there'll be a lot of oration and we're in an election year here, and this chart is really worldwide, but for our country, everyone is going to look for alignment from one side or the other.
Well, and these themes are both on the macro and the micro. It's like, we're going to see it played out, in the nightly news, or, wherever you get your news, but it's also, playing out in our little world as well. What I really like is that the planet of Venus activates this channel, or the energy, the possibility, the potential of friendliness and family, and the importance of that, and loyalty. So
this could be very tribal in a way that might divide people even more, of people wanting to align themselves with their families, political families or social families, all kinds of different families that exist in this world. People will want that kinship.
Yeah, I think it's, hopefully people have learned up until now, to be aware of what's going on, but still to be at choice, and that changes, history shows us that change comes from grassroots people getting together, standing together, and not everybody's going to agree. We know that.
Right.
We see that.
But on the unconscious side of Venus, there's a trait that has to do with unique knowing. So I think there'll be breakthroughs this year in understanding things in new and better ways.
Yeah, yes, exactly. Well, I think there's potential for breakthrough, insights, breakthroughs, thinking differently. I was listening to a podcast yesterday of someone that takes the pulse on the energy, and they were saying that this was going to be prevalent, especially in the first part of the year, where you're going to be getting these strong insights. And the other part of that was that not to just, make all the changes, or, leave your job or whatever. It's also to be have the timing of it. And for how that shows up in human design is by Mars, in that fifth gate of, you know, the rhythm, and also like not, you know, not being too impulsive.
Although Mars is the troublemaker.
Exactly.
So how does that fit into this sense of finding inner peace, finding the rhythm, the flow? It might be hard to get, or maybe the desire to find it might preclude taking stronger action.
Well, you know, we're going to get an opportunity to learn what that means. It's like Mars is what's immature, you know, or a little bit explosive. And so, you know, compared to what that person was saying to what we're seeing here in the chart about these insights, and to not be too reactive. So you can be impulsive and make quick changes, and then you're going to see what happens afterwards. We're just putting this out there that maybe people can have a little bit more composure and not get carried away or make these radical changes.
Right. You know, so Mars is a bit deceiving in this chart because it really holds a lot of promise, but it ends up, you know, we call Mars the troubled teenager.
Yeah, it takes time to mature. Exactly. It takes time to mature.
Right. So maybe that'll be elusive.
But also on the other side of that, Mars, you know, is the 57, you know, again, potential for insight and confusion from the insights that you get, right? So,
right. So I see it coming back to this tribalism, the sense of family, or needing our family to all align with each other, but it doesn't mean our families agree with other families.
yeah, I was seeing that too. But, you know, I think this is step one. Or one of the, you know, one of the foundational steps is really, you know, getting with who are your like-minded people. Where is there, where can you get support for who you are, and what your common purpose or a common mission, ideally.
Right. I just had a hit about this inner peace being troublesome because of being at Mars. And I was thinking that maybe we can only find inner peace after a great disturbance. And so this year, you know, there is potential for a lot of military display that might teach us the hard way of finding inner peace. Maybe that's what it's saying.
Mm.
So, you know, part of doing this show is not to calm everybody down and saying everything's going to be all right, because we don't know that everything is going to be all right, and it's not fair to just try to whitewash the year. We have to really help people understand it so people can find their own footing within it and say, oh yeah, there's that trait of perversion, there's that trait of finding inner peace in troublesome ways, and be able to live with it.
Well, as we say in the human design community, is that we're watching the movie, you know, so it's like this is part of the movie that's going to play out. Do you have to be reactive, or can you be observant? And
Well, also self-protective too.
yeah, of course.
You know, because being the observer is more objective, allows us then to respond in ways that aren't caught up in these factors that other people are caught up in.
Well, how's your take on this Uranus? Because that's kind of the unpredictable one, right? We don't know. It's a shakeup.
Yeah, Uranus is the planet of sudden change, and this is a trait of selfishness, and the abuse of selfishness leading to misfortune. And so what we might have is, because of it being a disruptive year, a lot of people take the selfish route and look out for themselves at the at the stake of others. And it's this is not a simple chart this year. It's not, as I said, it's not a whitewash. It's not sugar-coated. And then on the unconscious side of Uranus is greed. So if greed and selfishness having to do with, we're undergoing sudden change, and everyone's going to look out for themselves. And then we also have tribalness.
Right.
Yeah,
well, wanting
normally,
more. Yeah, the 27-3, just, obsessive, wanting more, whatever more is, more power, more money, more property. So that, like I said at the beginning, that kind of plays out at one end of the spectrum.
and we have a desire for collaboration and of the value of family, which is the value of tribe, which is, I'm going to be greedy and we're just going to keep it to our own tribe.
Right.
And tribe could be anything. It could be any group or any family or any political party even. So that it's not an easy year. And then we have at Pluto, we have Pluto is also a dark planet because it's where our lessons are. And we have interdependence, collaboration. And so obviously the collaboration might not be a collective collaboration, it might just be tribal collaboration. So there's going to be strife that way. On the unconscious side, we have occult knowledge, so secrets, secretive positions that people take. And
we have Saturn playing in that. Saturn's playing, a similar theme with Pluto. And, on one side, this can be really delusional thinking. On the other side, it can be, having great insights.
Well, Saturn is where our lessons are. And in a good way, it's where our work is to produce good results. And it's the pressure to know fundamental principles.
Yes, I like that. I love that line.
Right. And so that's where the hope is.
Exactly.
We'll get back to the basics and hopefully agree on fundamental principles. And that'll be, tribe, not only tribal, but collectively. So it can really, everybody can hopefully agree on fundamental principles. And, but then we come to the unconscious Saturn, and that's secret relationships. So again, there's intrigue in this. So
what's going on behind the scenes? We know there's plenty going on behind the scenes.
Right. So, but let's look at Jupiter, because Jupiter is where there's hope. Jupiter is the planet of expansion and abundance. And maybe that's really where we need to hang our hats. And yet it has to do with integrating with others in times of struggle, but that can be also tribal, and it's persevering, and so people will persevere with others, and let's hope they also want to integrate.
Well, it's about alliances, and
right, but it could be collective alliances. In other words, let's ally with the other side, or let's just ally with our own greedy, selfish interests.
The energy to integrate with others in times of struggle. you know, so yeah, I mean, the theme keeps repeating. We can look at, you know, how just helping people take a look at how is that going to show up? Is that the alliances? Is it to separate others or to include others? Because it's both, yeah.
Right. And I think a lot will depend on the people who have the greatest wisdom, you know, because let's not say that everybody's going to be influenced by these negative traits because everybody is so um, um, ignorant or you know, lacking in maturity. I think we do have a lot of wise, mature people in the world who will try to provide wisdom to everybody. And that's where we could, you know, find our best benefit. And then on the unconscious side of Jupiter is a sense of giving authority to people who we see as correct. And maybe there are enough wise people in the world who understand the difference between correct action and greed and selfishness. So it's going to be a complicated year because there is so much in this chart that lends itself to trouble, and yet there is a sense of, you know, that we can find inner peace. We might have to work for it.
It's not a natural state. It's a maturing.
Right. But we might mature through the year. And I'm looking at this chart. Actually, one of our listeners, when he heard that we're going to do the show, sent me a chart that he had of human design from some other software that I didn't print out. And it says the signature this year is frustration to satisfaction. So I'd say that's a good handle for us to hope for, is that we're going to end up being satisfied somehow after we work through so much upset. And I think maybe it's the degree of the upset that wisens people up. And they say, look, we see all these bad habits, they haven't gotten us anywhere. So let's try to have breakthroughs collectively and really understand each other and appreciate that we're all in this together.
Well, satisfaction can come in with small successes, and hopefully that people are aware of, you know, being more practical, like
Right.
not going for the idealism, but not being pessimistic, but looking for what's working and feel satisfaction in the small things that are working.
I like that, and we all have our own ground at home, and with, you know, our smaller communities that we can be much more positive with. Not that many of us have power in a larger sphere of world activity, but just keep our home fronts as peaceful and productive as possible. And you know, I think people should study a lot of what we've said. Maybe they can review the show and just kind of settle in with themselves that we're facing a complicated year, and there are all these factors that you can actually forgive them, because this chart was created from basically the beginning of time, and you know, it was meant to be. We could have printed this chart out 30 years ago for today. It would be the same chart. Yeah. So we're at a time where we need to be at this time for the evolution of our society, and we have to go through this. And so
Yeah, and I think people also, the more they know who they are and where their strengths are and what they can rely on in these times is going to be very, very beneficial for them. And that's what human design, that's my big passion, and yours, of helping people understand who they are,
I
so that
think,
when they do, hit the bumpy roads, that they have a place to center.
right. I think we have a great future, but I always say the phoenix will rise. We just don't know how thick the ashes are going to be that the phoenix rises from. And this could be a year of building a bigger pile of ashes, or hopefully maybe a short, quick pile that the phoenix rises from quickly. So let's hope so. So we're getting right near the end of the show. Nattalee Lillico, how can people find you?
Well, I love hearing from people. You can reach me at 707-888-3569. And my website is Align with Your Design. Align is ALIGN, withyourdesign.com.
That's wonderful. And you're terrific. I'm so glad to do this with you. I wish it was a simpler chart for the year. We could just smile a lot. But we're doing the best we can with what we've got.
Thank you so much, Peter.
Thank you, Nattalee, and Happy New Year to you.
Yeah, same to you.
And Happy New Year to all our audience. This is Peter Roth, your host of Energy Stew at prn.fm. I can be reached at peter@heartriver, HEART river.org. I'd love to hear from you, and thanks so much for listening.